In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. You know, today is Inclusion Awareness Sunday, which is something new to our metropolis and new to our parish, as well as something to be remembered once a year at least, to remember those who have disabilities, as well as even a second dimension to that too, is to feel that the parish is inclusive to everyone, not only those who have a disability, but also those who may not be frequenting in the church. You know, if we think about our lives here in the church, it's very important to remember that what we do, what we say, and how we act are evangelizing tools or they're condemning tools to those around us. The church either grows or dies on the local level by the attitude of the parishioners and the attitude of the clergy. Those two things are very important, and when we remember on today, we remember today the Inclusion Awareness Sunday. It was originally intended for those with disabilities to remember that God's house is open to all, and we've made changes here in our church to make it accessible to all people. We have the door on the outside, which is automatic. We have the ramp so that no one is deprived of coming up to the solea. We have the automatic hand washers in the church, the sinks, the flushers, the stalls in the washroom. This church is on one floor. We've also made a ramp back to the altar, so if there was any clergy that had used a wheelchair, that they could actually come into the altar to serve in the holy altar. The ramp on the front, on the outside, as we redid the parking lot, we made that a 0 level. We made a 0 level on the back door as well as on the side here. So our church is open and as much as possible to this point, without more funding, to make the church accessible to all people. However, accessibility to the church is something that we, no matter how many changes we make to the facility to make it accessible, we have to make changes in our hearts to make the church accessible to others as well. And not just those with disabilities, but all people. If you think about how we speak as clergy even, how we speak to you as parishioners. If I were to come up here every Sunday and I would say, you people are sinners, you people are this, you people are that, and just kind of pointed the finger to you, or gave you salad sermons, as they're called. Salad sermon is let us. There's a lot of lettuce in there. That's why they call them salad sermons. For those, I know it's early in the morning to get that. And I kept saying, let us do this, let us do that. It's kind of a polite way of saying, you better. It's like what was that band that sang that? You better, you bet. Isn't that a song? What was it? There you go, Pete Townsend. See? But I didn't make that connection this morning, so I'm on the slow side this morning. But if you think about it, the disposition of the clergy greatly affects you. And a lot of people change parishes or they leave parishes because of the clergy. Is that right? Not really, but I always tell people, if you feel comfortable somewhere else, go there. And if you feel comfortable here, come here. There's no locks on the doors coming in, and there's no chains holding you from going out. However, when you're here, in any community, you have the responsibility to be mini clergy, if you want to call it that, where you are also preaching to those around you. When you go into the coffee hour, you are the extension of the church. We are the extension of the church in the world. We are the extension of the church here in the church, inside the church. Now, what does that mean? That means that you could have the most spectacular liturgy in the world. You could have the beautiful sermon, you could have a beautiful singing and all these things, and then you go into the coffee hour and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, where are you from?" And then you say, "Well, I'm from this parish." "Well, how come you're not here? How come I don't see you in church? Where do you sit? And how come you're not here every Sunday? What's your problem?" And then all of a sudden it turns the person off. And it becomes a tool of de-evangelization. And then that person says, "You know what? I'm not going to the friendly community or the one family, one church community. I'm going to go somewhere else because I don't like the attitude of somebody that came up to me." And I know that this is a case from your perspective and the clergy perspective, because we see it because people come out of the woodwork for Easter. Right? We see that. And I tell you every year, don't have an attitude of, this is my seat, and laying down your kids flat on the pews so that you can mark it off for the service, or putting cones up or whatever so that no strangers or foreigners or part-time Christians or CEOs or whatever you want to call them, Christmas, Easter only, Orthodox, come in, whatever you want to call them, that they don't take your pew. So you have to think about it and say, well, what is our mission? What is our mission as parishioners? Our mission as parishioners is to continue to missionize each other and to continue to speak about what the church does for us and not what maybe the church isn't doing for us, or the priest isn't doing or is doing, or that's something you don't like. And that's a hard habit to break. It's a hard habit to break gossip about anybody, and that's why there's those talk shows that get so much viewing, that everybody's got a talk show. What is a talk show? It's gossip about somebody else most of the time, unless you're watching Dr. Oz, and then you're calling your physician going, "I think I might have this." But everything else is just a bunch of gossip. You look at soap operas. What is a soap opera? It's a bunch of gossip about other people in a fictitious world that some people can't live without. I say, "Oh, General Hospital, did you see so-and-so and they're doing this?" And I can't believe it. And I've heard those conversations too. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, really, that's where we're at? And then you might ask them, "Hey, what's the saint? What's your favorite saint?" "I don't know." "Who do we know about in the church?" "I don't know." "What did Christ do after he was crucified?" "I don't know." "Who did he appear to?" "I don't know." But they know, what is it, that one with the housewives and all that kind of stuff? Somebody had a stroll. You're laughing because you know it. But my point is, we're so in tune to that. We watch it on TV. We choose it. You choose it. You choose to TiVo those shows, or DVR, or whatever you got. You're picking those things, and you're saving them. And we do that on Facebook, which is another indiscreet gossiping thing, because people, they ping each other and they say, "Oh, who's this and who's that connected? Oh, did you hear what they did?" And I say, "Well, who told you that?" "I read it on Facebook." Well, they didn't directly tell you. You heard it from somebody else who had it posted from a friend of whatever. My point is, there's good and bad in all media. But if we start tuning our lens to the fact that all we're going to do is discuss things with other people, then we become gossiping creatures that we can't stop. We have so much ability to speak about others that we lose the ability to speak about ourselves. Now, if you think about it, I'm going to say it again. We speak so much about other people that we lose the ability to speak about ourselves. Now, what is your life about? When you go meet God, whenever that day is, and you go in front of Him, are you going to be talking about everybody else? Or are you going to be trying to recount everything that you did that was right? And when we talk to people, are we talking about God, or are we talking about others? And that sets the disposition of the growth or the decline of the church from a church family perspective. So when we go into the coffee hour, if we're talking about other people, and do you see that lady who sat in the front row didn't she know it's for memorials or whatever? I mean, the front row is like sacred. Everybody's like, it's like a force field around it because you don't know who's going to be there. But I guarantee if there was somebody sitting in the front seat with orange hair and leopard skin on, everybody, the whole service would be, who's that? And I know it. That's what it would be. We have to get from the point of talking about each other to talking about God and talking about ourselves. Because the mission of the church is about making people feel included. That's why this Inclusion Awareness Day is not merely about those with disabilities, whom we all should welcome. As a priest, and it's no secret to anyone that my mother has been, has multiple disabilities for years. I know that sometimes, people will look or stare or whatever, but I also think we do that not only with those who have a disability, but I think we do that to each other. And that's where the detriment of the growth of the church happens, is when we proclaim and we wear a cross and we say, I believe in God and I'm an Orthodox Christian, and we wear it on our sleeves, and we have Greek pride and Orthodox pride, and we have all these things, and then we encounter someone who's Christian, but maybe not even Orthodox, and we look at them and say, how come you're so different? How come you're not Orthodox? And I guarantee that those who are here today who are not Orthodox, who are married to an Orthodox, or maybe just here because they find this to be home, have heard that question asked to them. I guarantee it. How come you're not Orthodox? Are you going to become Orthodox? When are you going to be Orthodox? Well, how come you're not yet? What's the problem? What, don't you like us? Aren't you Greek enough? You hear that stuff because I hear it from the people who heard it directly. The point is, what makes somebody feel comfortable when we have that disposition? Nothing. Nothing. And what is our disposition as Orthodox? Is to go out and to what? Speak of the good news of Christ. Not speak about how other people are wrong, not to speak about how other people should be our way, or how they should be more Greek, or they should be more Orthodox in their thinking. It's about sharing the good news. Period. And what is the good news? Hopefully you know what the good news is. That Christ is our Savior, that He rose from the dead, that He offers salvation for all, that we have the church established by the apostles, that we are connected to that church through Christ and through the apostles and through apostolic succession, through our clergy, and we're moving forward. And this is what it is doing for me, because you cannot evangelize the church saying what it did for somebody else. And you cannot evangelize the church by saying what somebody else is not. You have to use your own personal testimony. And believe me, anyone who's ever done anything to solicit another person has used a first-person testimony of what it is. I'll give you an example. I don't like to golf. Sorry. To the golfers, I go for our golf outing, I bought a cheap set of clubs that are left-handed because that even makes it worse for me. I'm not a big golfer. People love to golf. I remember, however, my first golf outing was not a church event. And I remember the person who said to me, you got to come golfing. I said, you know what, I really don't want to spend 4 hours chasing a ball around, acres of land walking around. And he said, no, you really got to go. It's nice, and you enjoy the trees, and it's sunny out and all this kind of stuff. And he said, and you have to walk the course. Okay. So now I start out and I say, well, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to. He's like, Father, I'm telling you, you got to come out and golf. So what does Genius do? I go out, I got a bag of rent-a-clubs that's like from the 1800s. It's this big heavy thing, and I'm walking 18 holes with this thing on my shoulder, chasing balls here, chasing them there. I went through, I don't remember how many balls, and I got done and I said, now I dislike this game even more than when I started. But why did I go? I went because of the testimony of the golfer who was a professional, whatever, straight as an arrow, and mine are going, hitting trees, cars, and people. I went because he said it was something spectacular. And he said it was great, and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to love the birds. I didn't hear a bird. I didn't see anything. I was just looking for the ball in the water, and then by the end, I wanted to just leave the clubs on the field because I didn't want to carry. I just wanted one because that was all I used. And I'm like, I'm not going to carry this weight anymore. And then pretty soon, he's carrying my bag, and I got my club. And make a long story short, and a painful story short, I only golf once a year now at the golf outing, but I use a cart. My point is, we have to have that testimony of what God is doing for us. Because in doing that, even if it's outside, so say somebody comes and they're Orthodox and they're not a frequent Orthodox, they don't come to church that often. And you go and you say, you know what, this church means something to me. Forget about me as a person. Forget about Father John or Costa or the choir. What does it mean to you and God? Because hopefully you're not hung up on me or hung up on Father or the singing, whatever, that you are going through that to God. And then go out and speak about it and entice the other person to come. But the key is, once you do that, you cannot go back and then undercut it and say, okay, by the way, I'd like to throw this burden on you of gossip. Let me throw all the trash that I know about everybody on you, and then let you just chew on that, and I'll walk away. Because when that happens, no matter what kind of testimony you had, it doesn't make it better, and it won't make the person return. So I'm not saying that the church needs to be thousands of people in here. But what I am saying is that the people who are in here have to feel included. And they have to feel part of the family of God. Because, you know what, if you don't like the person sitting next to you, too bad, because eternity, if you want to go to heaven, they're going to be next to you. They're not going to look the same, but they're going to be next to you. And the people who won't be next to you are the people who are maligning other people in the coffee hour. So, and I'm not saying that that's a practice. I'm saying anywhere in the world, that someone who maligns somebody and continues to destroy that image and moves away from God, and obviously it's God's choice, and I got to preface this now because I'll probably get critiqued. It's God's choice on who goes to heaven and who doesn't, so let's just throw that out there. And it's not mine, I don't judge, but I'm just saying that we have to open up and we have to embrace God. Because if we embrace the negative things, that's all we're going to look for. And the hand that will come to us when we close our eyes, if it's God's hand, we've already reached out. We know what it feels like. We know what God feels like. We have it in our hearts. But if it's not God's hand, then that is what we've been grabbing our whole life. And the fathers of the church write about these tests that we have when we die, that we go through, and that it's a fight between the angels and the demons when we die. And they are fighting over the soul of the person and saying, no, I want him. Did you see what he did? Did you see what she did? Oh, yeah, oh, no, but they did this. And then, no, they did this. And it's written that there's these toll booths or these stops that we are tested, and we reach out for those things, and we either pass or we fail. And now there's some skepticism on that side if the toll booths are really there. But the point is, you either know or you don't know God. There's no in between. It's like you either know your children or you don't know your children. There's no in between, or your spouse, or your family members, or your job. I mean, no one would say, you know what, I'm going to go to a doctor, and I got like this giant lump under my skin, and I'm going to go to a doctor. He said he didn't know what he was. He didn't quite not know what he was doing, and he didn't say he knew what he was doing. He was kind of, maybe he knew. Would you go to somebody like that? No. Would you want your faith to be that way? To be not hot, not cold, just kind of, whatever. God doesn't want that, and the book of Revelation speaks about that too. So, I know this is a bit longer than I've spoken before, but it's critical that you feel included and that you include others. No matter what they look like, no matter what they sound like, no matter what their issues are or not, the only way that we can be responsible for each other in growing in the faith is to include people, to speak about God, and to speak about ourselves, and not to speak about others, to create the church of God as it should be, and as the community of God should be. Amen.